Welcome to Curito Connects. I'm your host, Jen, and I've been conversing with friends around the world about life challenges and impactful moments. Conversations on this platform look at answering the questions how we overcome challenges and how our experiences shape who we are and the work we do today. I hope this work can inspire you on your own personal and individual journey. Let's dive right in. Hello, my guest today is Portugal-based Frederica Valente Perfeito. I'm so sorry. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but I just call her Freddie. So, hello and welcome to Curito Connects. Freddie, how do I pronounce your name?
Frederica Valente Perfeito, which actually means brave and perfect.
That's amazing. Brave and perfect.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I hope you go around telling people that that's what your name stands for.
Yeah.
Okay. So, a lawyer in her past life, Freddie discovered yoga in 2014 and has not looked back since. She then went on her self-growth journey, traveling around Asia, teaching yoga in India, Bali, Costa Rica, and Sri Lanka, which is where I met her at Soul and Surf Retreat. And we were just talking about this before we recorded, which was April 2019, and we're now talking again in 2022. A lot of time has passed. Besides for letting Freddie share her corporate to yoga journey, I wanted to add that she has the most amazing Spotify playlist for working out and practicing yoga too. When I practice myself, I oftentimes refer to Freddie's Spotify playlist. So I'm going to add the link below for those of you who like to listen to music during a workout or practicing yoga, so you can follow her Spotify channel. And I'm going to stop here and let Freddie begin sharing her story with us today.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jen, for inviting me. It's really nice to see you. I know people can't see us, but hear us. It's really nice. And yeah, do you want me to just tell you how everything started? Yeah.
Yeah, how everything unfolded. I mean, I usually let our guests, like my guest, kind of decide where they want to start. And it could go as far back as, early childhood, what you were interested growing up, or, we can even just fast forward and start with, you did what most of us do, right? We go through school, we finish our college degree. And then we go into work. So however you feel really resonates with that storyline for you in terms of where you were on this track, right? And then you hit that point of like, this is not what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, so I'm Portuguese. I'm from an island called Madeira, which is in the Atlantic Ocean. And since I can remember, maybe from like 11 or 12, I wanted to be a lawyer. I actually wanted to be a lawyer. I don't know why. Maybe inspired by like American movies, even though there's nothing similar to our system. And there's no lawyer in our family, so I really don't know where this came. But anyway, like to be a lawyer or to study law, you have to go to mainland. So I went to Lisbon when I was 17 to study in the university. And I never questioned anything until I remember first time, like first day of college. And one of the teachers, they asked like, why are you here? And that got me very confused, why am I here? Like, well, to study law. But it's like, but why? Like, oh my God, okay. I think that started like the little mess in my mind that from that moment. And then, yeah, the first year was fine. And then from the second, I was just already like, what am I doing here? I don't know what am I doing here. But I didn't know what to do. So I just continue, I didn't like to give up. So I just continue my journey, and I had some success. And then I started to work immediately. I was never out of job. So I practiced law for 7 years and a half. There was some good moments for sure, but most of the time I was a bit unhappy and miserable. I was always daydreaming about life at the beach or something tropical, which actually came to happen. And yeah, then I don't know. I had this. I did try yoga for a couple of times at the gym. It didn't resonate with me at the time, also because the environment is not the best, or like you don't connect so much. At least I didn't with the teacher of the gyms. And but slowly something was changing in me, like and I realized, because I would go to the gym and I would do 3 classes, pumping, sweating, coming home even more like full of energy. Instead of sleeping, I would just like stay up late. So not very relaxing for me. I'm very active and pita and all of that stuff. And so yeah, I realized with the yoga that I was, when I started to do like once in a while at the gym, even at the gym, I was like, oh, this is making me relaxed. It was, I would come home a bit more like chilled, not talking too much with my housemates. And yeah, then I had this epiphany one time, excuse me, at this festival. It's called Boom Festival, and it's mainly like a trance festival, but not really. Like there's a lot of workshops, and it's a beautiful place, beautiful people from around the world. People really travel from Australia, Japan, everywhere to go to this festival. So, and I just realized how unhappy I was. And I looked around, I was just seeing beautiful people, everybody in love. And I could cry because I was so not in love with myself and my life. And I was looking at people and they were doing yoga everywhere, and I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do yoga when I come to Lisbon. I'm going to like, not no more gym. I'm just going to full on yoga, or I'm gonna hire a psychologist because something is wrong with me. And yeah, so and I was like, yeah, yoga so far is a bit cheaper, so I'm gonna choose yoga. So then, yeah, it was. Then the process was very very fast. I just found this yoga shala just 3 doors down my office, and called Casa Vinyasa. And the teacher there, the main teacher, because they had other teachers that really helped me, but the main teacher called Isa Gitana. She still teaches in Lisbon. And yeah, it was so intimidating because it was Ashtanga. So Ashtanga,
Mm.
it's a self practice where everybody's doing their own thing, the Mysore style. And I came to this room, beautiful room, everybody doing these like weird positions, and I'm breathing loudly, super hot. I'm like, oh my god, I don't think I belong here. I felt so intimidating. I'm like, oh my god, I don't fit here. But then I talked to her, and she was this soul light, smiling, saying like, yeah, you're so welcome. And I knew, okay, I'm gonna stay here. And then I can't explain, Jen, this process inside of me is like, Ashtanga is very strong. I believe you detox a lot because you're always doing the same sequence, so you don't
Yeah.
get distracted. You're just like following one sequence, and you sweat a lot. It's very like masculine energy. There's no like, oh, la 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 la. You just do it. And I think that's what I needed. Like I started in August 2014, like, and it got me so hooked that I was doing 6 days a week. I would
Hmm.
not miss my yoga practice. I would do 7, but they were closed on Sundays. I was like, I felt really addicted to the practice. And I even mentioned this to the teachers, and they started laughing because they realized, everybody, if you're into this, you need this, because this was like giving me like motivation to get out of bed every day, because I didn't had, so I even changed my routine. I started to go to bed like 11 or 10:30 p.m. because I wanted to be at the shell at 7 a.m. or 6:30 to practice. And so it really like changed so much my life so fast. And then at the time I was sharing the house with some friends, and exactly when I started to practice in August, and then in September, two of them said, I think we're too many in this house and we just want to, leave the house maybe in January. So you guys have to look for a new house. And I was like, oh my God, everything is so expensive in Lisbon. I was single. Like, I also don't feel like searching for another, housemate. And so that started to, think of like going out of Portugal. I didn't know what. So I started to look for, I don't know, Bali and Thailand, not sure of what to do, and this was September. I just started practice in August. I can't explain. And then I was talking with a dear friend that said, why don't we go to India and practice some yoga there? And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah. I was a bit afraid, even though India was always on, I always dream about going to India. But unfortunately, there was a time that we heard about a lot of rapes and bad
Yeah.
things happening to women. So that put me a little bit like, oh, going alone to India, I'm a bit like, But then she was like, no, 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 like that happens everywhere in the world. Like India, you just have to be
True.
careful.
Yeah.
So just go. You're feeling it. India is the place for you at the moment. And so, yeah, I started looking for yoga teacher trainings, and I booked, a deposit for one in Goa in Arambol. Then in October, I told everyone, I was like, I'm going to India. And my friends, on my birthday is on the 30th of October, and they all gave me money for me to buy the ticket to India. And yeah, and in beginning of January, I told my boss. She was actually she is my dear friend, but it was just I was just working with one lawyer, and I told her, "Look, I think I'm gonna quit, and I'm going to India to do a teacher training." And she was like, "What?" I knew you were a bit unhappy. I noticed that already, but I didn't expect for you to just leave. And she said, look, okay, you can go, like of course you can go, but I will wait for you. And I was like, okay, that's nice of you, because the teacher training was a month. And I was like, okay, cool. But somehow that waiting, it was like, that got me a bit confused. And unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I don't wish anything bad for her, but like the next weekend she broke her foot, her leg.
Oh
and
no.
and so what happened was, like she said, I can't wait for you because I'm not at the office and I need someone to
Mm.
help me. And I was like, oh my god, phew, now I'm free, because I always think like what would happen if because the time I felt more confused was when I finished my teacher training, and I was like, what to do now? Because you always get excited, like you're going to a new place, you're gonna do the teacher training, so many things, and then you finish and it's like, real world, okay, what am I gonna do with my life now? Do I go back to Portugal? Do I travel? Do I continue? I had some money saved, but I didn't have a lot. And maybe if I knew like my job was waiting for me, and maybe I would have gone back. I don't know, but I didn't. So I just, yeah, I left everything. And I have to say, Jen, like people say, oh, you're so courageous, you just took this decision, but it was the most easy decision in my life. When I just felt it, I start sleeping so well. I was not happy before, and when I made this decision, everything just clicked. It was just meant to be. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to rewind a little bit. I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, when you started going to the shala and started really feeling when you got on the mat. I mean, I'm assuming you also practiced Mysore at the time too. um what about the practice really got you? Like, what, how did you, I guess the question is, what were you feeling at the time when when you, like you said, you were doing this law practice for 7 years, and I guess you had a very routine lifestyle then, and when you started practicing yoga, what were some of the very obvious changes for you, in terms of how you felt? when you were in the class and then when you left? Like you said earlier, you slept better. Um, you know, can you recall like some of those initial changes? And then
Yeah,
also
let's
wanted
yeah.
to, yeah, and then I also wanted to ask after that, it's like, you said you started around, was it August or October? And then no, August, and then in
August,
October,
yeah.
and then in October, you're like, all right, like after my birthday, packing my bags, I'm heading to India for a training. That time frame is actually quite short for like in terms of making that kind of decision, right? Because a lot of times, um, when you hear other people's stories or when you're talking to individuals who are in this transitional period, kind of going like, I want to leave my job, but I'm not sure. I don't have something lined up. Sometimes those take about a year or 2 years before people really take that leap, right? When they make
Mm,
that decision.
yeah,
I don't want to say like impulsive, but it was really, you were just going with how you intuitively felt, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it almost sounded like you weren't really thinking of like the what ifs, right? Like,
yeah,
what if I left this job? Will I be able to come back to it? How am I going to afford what's going to happen next?
yeah,
Right? Like, where am I going to live? Like,
yeah,
you kind of
yeah,
just
yeah,
said,
yeah,
I love this practice. I'm going to go and study more and then figure it out.
yeah. Well, first it was, I'm gonna answer the second question first. Like I started to practice in Casa Vinyasa in August 2014, and in October I made a decision, and I left in the 28th of February 2015. So I organized my life, like I sold some stuff, I packed some other stuff, I even lived with one of my best friends in January because I was, or no, in February because I was without a house already in end of January. So that helped me to also save some money. And I'm a very impulsive person, and apparently like I'm a Scorpio, and whatever that
Mm.
means, because everything is very individual. But I've heard that Scorpios also are very much into transformation. So and and with me is like when I put something on my mind, I have to do it. It was like cutting the hair. Like if in that day I would wake up and I was like, oh, I'm gonna cut my hair. It had to be that day. If it was not that day, maybe I would not cut. So I just, if I feel it, I have to do it now.
Do it. Mm.
And I've been questioning that. I was questioning that the whole of my life, Jen. Like, I want to leave law, but what to do? I want to travel, but I don't have the money. So all of my life, like 30 years, of course not 30 years, because as a child, even as a child, that's so funny. I used to pack my stuff and I would pretend I was going to run. I always wanted to run away from home. So maybe like
What were you running away from? What were you
I don't
running
know.
away
I was very like drama queen. I was always very unsatisfied. So I was never very happy with like the environment at home. I always wanted to run away. So that was always my feeling since a child. But I didn't know how. And with yoga, I stopped asking, what if I just went, you know? Because you never know what's going to happen. So I just stopped asking. And I think what was making me like I don't think I was ever depressed, because I consider myself quite strong person, but I had my ups and downs, very low. And so, and I think what got me very like sad, or like it's always this question like, what if, how to do. And when you question too much, it's just it's too much. Maybe it's just better to do, you do it. And everybody like was saying like, and me also, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like,
Yeah.
okay, I go to India, I travel a little bit. I'm a very responsible person, and so I had some money saved, but I would never ever be at zero. It's not my personality. So I would for sure would come come back home with at least 3,000 euros to pay an apartment or something like that. I would never be like zero, because I'm very, the oldest sister. I'm very like responsible. But so, and that's it. Like if I would come back to Lisbon, I would could stay at someone else's house, a friend, family. My family, my parents live in Madeira, so I would always have a house to go back to, and yeah, like, and even my friends were like, oh, if something happens, we will collect some money and we will pay for your flight, because if you have friends and family, you're always saved. Nothing bad will happen to you. Like, people always help you if you really need. And I
Mhm.
never needed that. I actually never needed that. So, yeah. And well, going back to your first question, I note, well, first my routine changed, because I was going to bed, I don't know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I could be at the office around 10:30 a.m. So, and I was living very close. So I would just like wake up, go to office. And so I started going to bed earlier, sleeping very good, because my sleeping was never very good. I had insomnia for a couple of years as well. So the first months I was sleeping very, very good. I also noticed, like, I'm a bit, I know I'm flexible. I didn't know before, but when I started to practice Ashtanga, I noticed how quite easily I could go into the position. So that's why I was like going quite fast in the sequence, maybe too
Mhm.
fast, my teacher said. But I started to study immediately. It was so, I started to buy books and read books, and I didn't become vegetarian immediately at the time, because there was still a lot going on, and also staying at my friend's house, they were eating, fish and meat like almost every Portuguese I know. So I was not, but I was already like it started in me, like, oh, animals. I was never a meat lover. So, and then in India it came immediately, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna eat meat anymore, at least until
Mhm.
now. And
Mm.
yeah, like, I didn't remember this, but I was talking with one of my housemates like some while ago, and she said that when I was coming home every day, because I would go to the gym every day, um, I would come home so like full energy. I would never stop talking. I was like blah 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 blah, blah. So full on. I was full on. And then when after yoga, I would come home completely in my bubble, go for a shower, just be quiet, just say hi everyone, good night. I hope you're all okay. And it was like it's like everybody was just like, what's happening to her? So I actually don't remember so much, but people that were living with me, they remembered that I was suddenly quiet and just chilled and going to bed early. And yeah, that's what I remember more. But it was I have to say September was a very like hard month for me, because that's when I was like deciding what to do. And I remember I was in a very, very bad mood. I went into
Mhm.
like the deep down, I was digging some stuff for sure. So it was like a detoxing month for me. So you didn't want to meet me in September 2019, because I was not the greatest person to hang out with. Because I was like in, making these decisions. And yeah, I noticed also like physically, I noticed I was more aligned. I noticed like more how to sit, like I started to
Mm.
immediately my posture, like my walking. I was so aware of these stuff. And yeah, that's it. And then yeah, and in India, oh my god, that's another life. Like I did my teacher training. I stayed there for 5 months. Then I went to Bali, and in Bali, I wanted to stay there for a while, but I didn't know what to do. In Bali, there's so much yoga, so I was like, oh my god, I was so intimidating. I
You're in
didn't.
heaven. You're in heaven.
Oh my god, no, I didn't feel, Jen. I felt I was in hell. I actually
Oh,
felt, yeah,
opposite. Okay.
yeah, because Bali, like then I loved it, but the first week I was there, I just wanted to get away because I was coming from India, all covered, all shanty shanty, and then you come to this place where everybody's like super hippie, but like very stylish hippie, with the leggings that are from this brand and taking the smoothie balls and the smoothie this and so like Instagram
It's
pictures
like,
and
yeah, I was
take
gonna say it's
walking.
a very Instagrammable, a very
Yeah,
Instagrammable
more
environment.
commercial yoga, and also like in the bikinis on the street. And we're like, oh my god, please cover yourself. I was still coming with that mentality of like, you have to cover. And then of course, like after a month, I was also walking on bikini on the streets because the human being adapts so much. But yeah, and at the time I was like, I'm going, this is too much, I don't fit this yoga world here in Bali. But then I talked with a friend of mine, Portuguese. He owns a very well-known surf retreats, like surf camps, I would say, surf camps around the
Mhm.
world. So the name is La Point. So Soul and Surf came after. And La
Mm.
Point, like I didn't know surf. I didn't even like surf, I don't think. But I just went there. It was in Canggu when Canggu was still like quite mellow. Now I think it's like Kuta, very a lot of
Yeah.
people. But yeah, so I went to this surf camp and I was 30 years at the time, and my colleagues were 18, 19. And everybody in the surf camp was just like below 25 and very young, doing the gap year, before going to uni. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But then it was fun at the same time. I completely forgot I was 30 years old, whatever that matters or means, like especially back home. I
Right.
was just an adolescent again, or like a young adult, hanging out and partying with these guys, still teaching yoga, and I was social hosting. I started surfing, so it was fun. I started to enjoy myself, and then I went to Sri Lanka the first time in October 2015, and I was working for La Point there, and Sri Lanka in 2015 was very different from in 2019 when you went. It was like, I think there was like two restaurants. The rest, it was just like very local. It really
Mhm.
changed Sri Lanka in a few years. And it was surfing and socializing, and it was fun. It was fun times there, doing yoga, and but I wanted more. So then they invited me to be the general manager, or the camp manager of Costa Rica. I went to Santa Teresa, and I stayed there for 6 months. That time was not so happy for me. I didn't like to be a manager, managing people, money. It was not my thing, at least not at the time. And so I felt a bit lonely as well. The camp was very isolated, so I was just hanging out with the guests that, as you know, they come and go. So there's not like a friendship that is there all the time. So I actually felt lonely during that time. And then I just decided to go back to India, and I didn't care what I was going to do. I just wanted to go back to India. So I remember the first time in Sri Lanka, I saw another surf camp, which was called Soul and Surf. So I contacted them, and they didn't had a yoga position, but I didn't care. I knew yoga would come. It's in my life, so I didn't care. So they offered me the receptionist job, which was so much fun. So I went to India, to Kerala and Varkala, and I started to work for Soul and Surf, and I met so many people. And then I started teaching. Of course, I knew it would come. You just have to be in the place for things to happen.
Right.
And yeah, and then I was doing the booking I was booking manager, so I was doing bookings. I was doing teaching yoga. Then I went to Sri Lanka, and I was going between India and Sri Lanka. Then when we met, I was in Sri Lanka for a while. I decided to quit the booking because that was taking some of my time, and I wanted to just full dedicate myself to teaching. I was a bit insecure again, maybe because you said that before. Like, there's so many yoga teachers in the world. There's so many. I thought I wasn't capable of just being a yoga teacher and get my all of my income from teaching. I didn't think I was good enough to be a yoga teacher, just a yoga teacher. I thought I had to have another job to pay my life, which I know so many people like that they
Yeah.
just teach as a hobby because they think, I don't know, that's it won't be enough. And so and that was very helpful, and I grew a lot in that area and that time because I was teaching a lot, but I made good money. And in Sri Lanka it's quite cheap, so I wasn't spending a lot of money. So it was, and it gave me strength for me when I came back to Madeira. I think I only met like one or maybe two yoga teachers that were just yoga teachers because everybody
Mhm.
else were just keeping their job. And people were, when I came back, they were like, "Oh, are you going back to lawyer?" And I'm like, "What? No way! I'm a yoga teacher. Like, why would I do that?" "Oh, but do you think it's gonna be enough?" And I'm like, "It has to be. I'm gonna work, so it's gonna be enough." So I think this also helped me to, if you want to do something, just do it. Just
Mhm.
don't like do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, because then the universe will get confused. You
That's so
just
true.
focus on one thing that you really want to be good at, and it will come. Of course
I
it's a lot of ups and downs, but it's just like, just focus on what you want. If you want to be a yoga teacher, why are you being a, I don't know, like working as a lawyer? Like, unless you love lawyer as well, then that's fine. But if you're just working to get the money, you know, I I don't resonate with that. So
I loved how you just said you should do what you love doing, otherwise the universe will get confused. It's
yeah,
so true.
I think I do, because you're doing one thing, but in your heart you want another thing. So it's like, what do you want, man? Just put everything in alignment. Just
Can I also ask, when I mean you mentioned earlier on when you were talking about your law career, you said that there were moments of enjoyment when you were doing it. In terms of that kind of enjoyment and the enjoyment of serving, right? Like teaching others yoga, which is what you do now, and you also run your own retreats now. What would you say would be the difference between that kind of enjoyment when you were, practicing law at the time and
Mhm.
where you are now?
Well, I liked some of the parts I did because I'm very organized. So I like the emails. I like to organize stuff, and I used to like to go to court. I did court litigation a lot. So, but it was never it was never spontaneous. Like, I don't, for example, I don't plan my classes ever. I just do everything as it comes, everything by like whatever my energy, the energy of the space, of people. I just goes with the flow. And when I was a lawyer, it was not with the flow. I had to
Yeah.
prepare. I had to memorize some stuff, and that's not natural. And I don't deal with that. I For me, it's very hard for me to plan. I just like to do it like as it comes. And
Yeah.
with law it was not very like that. And but I guess you have to plan a little and a lot as a lawyer. But I didn't like it
Oh
so
yeah.
much, that part of law. And so, yeah, I feel I'm much more me as a teacher, as a yoga teacher. I do have like, I know I'm not a lawyer, and I never felt like I was. I what I mean is like I have the lawyer in me. I was never the lawyer I could have been because it didn't come
Mm.
naturally. But I know I'm very like the devil advocate. Like I'm always with that argument and making people think about other like options, and so I know I'm a bit like, eh. But I have the lawyer in me, but not professionally. I don't yeah, it doesn't really resonate with me, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very inspiring. I think I also want to add into our conversation for those who are listening is that you actually also started this path later on, right? Like you were in your early 30s when you decided to dive into this yoga path and
Yeah.
learn and practice and start teaching, right?
Yeah.
And
I
then
was
now,
29.
yeah, and then now you
Was
were
when I
mentioning
turned
earlier
30.
when you turn 30, yeah. And you were also mentioning earlier when we were talking about, do you have the confidence in this very saturated market to position yourself as a teacher and have that branding image and run your own retreats now? You're not working for a retreat center. You're running your own retreats around the world, right? So I
Yeah.
think that is also very telling of how far you've come in this journey.
Yeah. Jen, every time before I start doing, I always have self doubt. I always think I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable, or so many other people are doing it. But then something clicks and I decided to do. And then when I do, I don't even I completely forget about the self-doubt. I'm just like, "Oh, I did it, so I can do it again." And every time I do it, I just get better. Now, for example, I'm doing everything I'm actually hosting another retreat this weekend, and I'm
Hmm.
cooking as well. So I'm doing everything. And when I was working in Sri Lanka in Weligama for a Greenpeace Inn, and they were cooking, they were teaching, they were organizing everything, and I was like, "Oh my God, how can you do all of this? I could not ever do this." And here I am today, and I'm doing this. So I get this inspiration, and you always think like, "Wow, I can't do it," but then there's a moment you think, "Maybe I can." So you just do slowly, slowly, and then yeah, and then you can.
But when you talk about like having the doubt to do it, I think sometimes it's not even necessarily doubtful of your ability to execute these things, right? The other doubtfulness is, will people come, right? You're gonna
Yes,
create
yeah,
this.
so much, so
Well,
much.
who's gonna come? Is it your students? How do you retain students? I think this is a very common question for
Yes,
anyone who's teaching in any modality, right? It's not just yoga. It could be other healers, other modalities,
yeah,
right? The question of how do you, I guess, I mean, yeah, in some ways it's like be confident that what you're putting out there will also resonate people to come.
yeah, yeah. You're right. Like when I know I can, and that's out of question. But it's very typical for me to compare myself with others and to think that, like, who will come to my retreat? But I have this ritual, like when I think about like, for example, I want to do a new retreat, and I'm searching already for places. And I put this date, for example, and then I put like how many people I want to in my retreat. And and then I just like go back to my journal, because I journal every day, and I'm like, I want this to happen, and I write down, and I'm like, this retreat is going to happen this day with this amount of people. I'm going to do it. This is possible. I'm doing it. I can. And I don't visualize anything else, because like I said, I prepare things very like close to the date. So I just
Hmm.
visualize, like I just think, okay, I'm going to do a retreat. It's going to be in this place with this amount of people, and the rest I plan later. And I don't know, I promote in social media I actually never had to do in a book yoga retreats or book retreats. Like I had my retreats there, but I never got people from there. So now I'm just gonna put it like only if I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I So far I had people in my retreats. I also had one or two that I didn't, and that's fine. Maybe it wasn't meant. I always believe if it's not happening, it was not meant to happen. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
get, like I always
Yeah.
believe it didn't happen for a reason.
Yeah.
But I think that's it, Jen. I just like I put my intention and I just don't sit around. Okay. I put my intention, I want this to happen, and I just promote on social media. But something happened last time, like, and I think, I don't know, I'm really like connecting with the universe, manifesting. Like this last retreat that I'm gonna do in February, like it's coming. I put the new dates because I sold out my first retreat. It was just a weekend. And new rules because of COVID restrictions came, and I got a bit like, maybe this is not the time for me promoting a new retreat.
Mm-hmm.
So I just decided to cancel. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
take it out from my website, neither from Facebook event. I forgot,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, like the universe just didn't take that off. And then I had some like inquire two girls, they wanted to come to the retreat. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
what? But I canceled this retreat. And I'm like, oh, I didn't. I was like, okay, why not? I contacted the place, the quinta, like the farmhouse that I was gonna do, and they still had availability. So I'm like, okay, book that place again. And in a week, I got my retreat booked, and I didn't
Mm.
promote. And I don't know, Jen, this is like the universe is already conspiring. I think the universe is always conspiring in our favor, but we just have to,
We
get your
we have
mind
to,
focused.
yeah, we have to listen and have faith, right? And be
Yeah,
intuitive about it. And like
yeah,
you said earlier, don't let the universe be confused about your intention.
yeah, yeah, that's it. Because the universe knows I want to host retreats. I always wanted. So, like Deepak Chopra is always saying, like, you put your intention, but then you just let go. You're not always like, oh, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? Like, you just, you know, if you know what you want, the universe knows what you want. So it's just like, you just have to
Yeah.
trust, surrender, just, yeah, do a
So
little
can
thing.
we can
But
we do a little like a little promotion here in terms of, can you tell us a little bit about your retreats? Like what would someone experience when they attend one of your retreats?
yeah. So my retreats, they're a bit like inspired of my life, my yoga path, the retreats that I work for, the retreats that I um, attended. So they will have like of course, asanas, which is yoga positions. They'll have some class. I have to say, I love active meditation, so Osho shakings and weird stuff that I can't do in my normal class. So I bring a
Hmm.
little bit of those weird practices where people just like lose themselves a bit, and to, shout, cry, yell, jump, whatever. I
Hmm.
love dancing, so sometimes I also bring some ecstatic dance to my retreats.
Which you have your playlist on Spotify as well.
Yes, I have my playlist, everything there, my ecstatic dance, my classes, everything. Um, I also like to bring, I did that, I don't even know, like 2 years ago already, but I'm going to do this one. I like mantras, but I like also to make it fun. So, for example, I like to add my Western mantras, like, for example, don't worry, be happy. Like, I just add that one and I make people sing, because sometimes people are singing, chanting like Ganesh, but that really doesn't resonate with them.
Yeah.
So, and then if you sing like "Don't worry, be happy," everybody's gonna be happy because they understand the lyrics. So, I also think it's important to add some stuff which Westerns can resonate and feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, so meditations, I like walking meditation a lot. I try to do my retreats in nature, so you have that component of like walking in grass and what else, like yeah, journaling, because journaling is a part of me since I was little. So
Hmm.
I normally do some workshops where I make people like coaching stuff, that I make some people think about some questions, or like I put people talking to one another. Or I just now recently, since my last retreat in October, or actually no, in June or July, I had this note to self. So I always make like some notebooks, like very
Hmm.
simple, like some sheets, and I put like Liberta Yoga Retreat. So if people don't have their own notebook, they will get one from my retreat. So, and now I'm making like specific questions after the yoga class for people to reflect and to have some time writing down, journaling
Yeah.
with direct questions. And yeah, and then vegetarian food that I'm cooking. And this
It
one I'm
sounds.
making this one I'm actually doing a vegetarian workshop, how to be a vegetarian. So I'm actually doing a workshop on that in
Oh,
my,
awesome.
yeah. So I'm always
It,
changing a little bit. So
it sounds very wholesome. I wish travel could resume normally so,
yeah,
I could fly over too.
me too. And also hosting there. My dream is to go to India and do my own retreat in India. Like I promised some of my
Mm.
Portuguese students that I will do that, and I'll take you to with me to India, so where I was very happy. So that's on my. I don't know when that's going to be possible, but one day it will.
Well,
So maybe India is closer to you.
you're putting it out there to the universe, so it will
Yes,
manifest. It will
yes,
manifest.
I hope so.
Oh my goodness, we're coming short on time. I have like so many other questions I want to ask you, but
It feels like this.
but I guess we will have to leave it for another conversation. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you to kind of give your 2 cents to those who are listening and really resonate with your storyline. What would you say to people who are in that transitional period, with their career, with moving on a different trajectory, or yoga teachers who are trying to find themselves or position themselves in, again, like we said, a very saturated market, to find their voice and their students.
Yeah.
So that's my first question. And then my last question is always, what books or podcasts that you would recommend to others that really helped you during that, very pivotal transitional period for you, that you would recommend?
Okay. So first, when I left Lisbon, I have to say, I was single, no pet, no dog, no cat, no child. I didn't had anything, like no mortgage. I was actually quite free, in like I was just renting an apartment, no car, no nothing. So I have to say I was in it was quite easy for me to let things go because there was no attachments for me. And maybe because, and that's part of me, I don't like to be attached to anything. I still don't have any mortgage. If I want to pay something, I don't have, of course, a house, but like if I want to pay something, I just pay it. So I like not having like attached to. I like to be free. So so that helped for me to make this decision. Of course, if people have, even a dog or a cat, that's going to be hard for people to let go. Like of course they don't have to go to India, but but for jobs, this is like, of course I had a little bit of money saved, which I knew I could be comfortable for like maybe 5 months or even more if I was in Lisbon. So I think, first of all, just it's very important to know what you want to do, because if you're still in, like, if you don't know what you want to do, of course it's going to be hard to give up your job. But that's why I was for years like, oh, what am I going to do, what am I going to. So the moment I knew, because I knew, then it was easy to let go.
Mm.
So the first thing is like, you have to know what you want. And for many people, this is the problem, because they don't know what they want. They just like everyday life. They just go, they have the routine. They don't think about these things. They just have to make money, pay the bills. So like, it's also, I think it's very important to travel, to get away from the daily life, for you to have more space to to connect with yourself, leave the phone a little bit, let go of the routine, so you to just realize, like, okay, what me, Freddie, likes to do, and then do that, go back home and maybe try a new hobby, try painting, try whatever, and maybe you'll find like a community that resonates with you, like get out of, because we have these friends since ever, but they don't really like, that's what I noticed, like my friends will always be my friends, but actually they don't really mix with my new, like, kind of like lifestyle. It's very easy for me maybe to have more things in common with you, Jen, that I met like one time in my life in person, that maybe like my friends since a lifetime, because people change.
Yeah.
And it's also very important to think about that, is like maybe you need to find new friends that like help you to see new things, because you're always changing. And so yeah, so community, find things that you like, go travel a little bit, disconnect from, go for retreats if that's like helps you, because going to a retreat, it doesn't mean you have to be a yoga teacher. It means you have time for yourself
Mm.
to just be aware of like what you want, what you feel. So I think it's so important to go to retreats, so important. And it can be any other kind of retreat. It doesn't need to be just yoga. There's so many like
Yeah.
other retreats. And so the second question, I'm a fan of Jay Shetty. And I have to say, the
Yeah.
podcast came very late. Like when I was living abroad, I was not listening to anything because I was very disconnected from outside world, and I was just focused on my life in Sri Lanka. I know I was never so present in my life. I was there, there completely. But back in normal life, you have to pick up these stuff to get you more motivated. So yeah, definitely Jay Shetty,
Yeah.
international. Aubrey Marcus, I actually I also like a lot. Aubrey Marcus, he's a American. Let's see, because recently I'm listening a lot of Portuguese podcasts. They're very good
Oh,
Portuguese podcasts. Yeah.
okay.
So for that ones, I don't know if you want me to say, because maybe it doesn't. You have to know Portuguese. But let me see if I have more international ones. Like sometimes, yeah, I think these are the main ones. I think. Sometimes I
Okay.
hear some yoga, like yoga with Adam Hustler, and like more about yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and books. Um, I have to say, like the first book that came into my mind when you asked was Louise Hay.
Mm-hmm.
Again, like the books that, like The Alchemist, of course. But when I came back to Madeira, I also started this a new process. So I've had different phases in my life. So coming back home was not a very easy transition. First, because I was not prepared to come back. I wanted to go back to Sri Lanka, and I went back to my mother's house. So it was very like going back to old stuff. And so that's when I actually started to listen to more podcasts and books like self help, and Louise Hay, like You Can Cure Your Life. I think it's something like that. I think it's her first book. I'm not sure, and it really really helped me to gain self love, and because I didn't have that until then. Like just because you quit your job, it doesn't mean you love yourself.
Right.
It's always like little steps, and all of this journey that I had before coming here was to prepare myself to do more things about like self-respect, self-love, self-care, which I didn't had also in India and Sri Lanka. So just
Right.
because I, of course, practicing yoga is self-care, but there's more. And
Yeah.
so yeah, Louise Hay, also like Think as a Monk. of Jay Shetty. It's very practical. It's very good. There's a lot of very good tips there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I'm reading this new book, which I find amazing. I love to read, so I don't think I will remember everything. I read a lot about philosophy and yoga. They're very technical, so maybe that's not very interesting here. But this new
That's
book,
okay.
this new book that came out from James Nestor, I think it's breathe or breath or like learn how to breathe. It's just amazing. It's very interesting, and I think everybody should read this. And it's so interesting, and also because I follow a lot Celeste Pereira. She's a yogi, like full on social media, and she has her own podcast. And I'm also reading this other book about breath, um, but I don't remember his name. Mac something, Scottish, I think. But anyway, like what else book? Oh, I don't know. Like
Oh, that was
Sadhguru.
plenty.
Sadhguru in
That-
inner engineering from Sadhguru. It's also
oh, inner
very,
engineering. Okay,
yeah,
yeah, it's a
very good.
classic one too.
Yeah, classic
Those
one.
are plenty of recommendations. Thank you very much. I'm going to put everything that you've listed on the episode resources below, including your website and your social media, so people can follow you. And they can also get some Curito discount if they want to take your
Yeah,
online classes as well. So I'm going to include all of that information. We could continue conversing because I feel
yeah,
like there's so much we could cover, but we have to wrap up. So
limited.
thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story. And I hope that this story resonates with our audience, and that when travel resumes, we can visit you in Portugal.
Oh my God, that would be amazing. And me going to Taiwan because I always wanted to go there. So one day I'll visit you,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes. Okay.
Well, thank you so
Well,
much. It was
thank
great. Thank
you.
you so much for inviting me and to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Thank you.
Bye.
That's all we have time for today. Thank you for listening to Curito Connects. For more Connects content, collaborations, and discoveries set to inspire you on your own individual journey, please head to our website at www.curito.co. Until next time, stay inspired, and thank you for joining us at Curito Connects.